You don't know me, my name's Jane Mills. My husband is Ivan. We run a ministry called Christ for All Children, and it was started in Perth in 1987. Back then, Ivan used to focus on ministry here in Australia, and he used to do a lot of holiday clubs, outreach clubs all over WA. He actually ran a holiday club where his first involvement with your church about 35 years ago was to run a holiday club along with Pastor Frank when he was here. But a time came not long after that, Ivan was listening to Pastor John Warwick, who was speaking about going to Pakistan. And as Pastor John was speaking, the Lord spoke to Ivan and said, I want you to go to Pakistan. And Ivan hadn't been out of Australia at that stage. He thought there was plenty of work to do here. But as God spoke, Ivan knew that was what he wanted to do. But at the same time, he also knew he didn't have enough money. He didn't have any money to be able to do that. But what was amazing, at that time, out of the blue, Ivan received a message, a phone call from the local government saying, we want to purchase some of your land as an easement. Send him a cheque for $2,000 so that he would go to Pakistan. So Ivan's first international ministry was actually paid by the government. How cool is that? So Ivan went to Pakistan. He ministered to the children of missionaries. Then he went to India. He was actually really homesick by that stage, wanted to go home, but the Lord had other plans. And during that week, he went into schools in Bombay, now called Mumbai, and shared the gospel with about 5,000 children during that week. His eyes were opened to the harvest. You know, Jesus said, the harvest is ripe, but the labourers are few. That time in India, his eyes were opened and he was never the same again. You know, that's one reason why we love to take people with us on trips. And we were here last November. We invited you to come here, to come away on a trip with us. And many of you came forward. We were so delighted at how many of you said, we want to come on a trip. It was fabulous. And we know that not all of you have been able to do that yet, but 5 of you have actually been on a trip. And we know that you've heard some of their stories, but I thought I'd present some of their stories also from our point of view. Can we have that PowerPoint, please, Tony? So this was the first trip, and you will know a couple of people there. In fact, one of them's just been on the stage. So we had the privilege of having Jordan and also Josiah on the right come with us to the Philippines in April. And we just grew to really love and appreciate them. Quality young men. What a delight. The other 2 are young men from our church in Perth. They're not quite so experienced or as mature as Jordan and Josiah. And we were just so thrilled that your 2 took them under their wings, spoke into their lives, encouraged them in the things of God, and did amazing things. Because we had young men on the team, we wanted to do something pretty hands-on. This isn't moving. Can I have the next one, Tony? Yeah, I think we missed some. Back. I must have pressed too many. Back before that. Yeah, so we wanted to do something hands-on. So we did a lot of children's ministry, children's outreach. Usually our focus is training, but because we were in the Philippines, because we had young people, we did a lot of outreach. So we ended up reaching about 570 kids in 8 programs in different locations. Here you see Josiah with some of the children in a little fishing village. And we were just so delighted with the way that the young guys connected with our kids. Here's another one. There's another one. And Jordan's making with the kids what we call a gospel armband. Some of you would be familiar with that. It's an armband which has coloured beads where all the beads represent part of the gospel message. after that, we also went here to it was a school, even though it was school holidays, and we were able to present the gospel. And we don't know exactly how many children were saved, but we believe that many were. But truly in the Philippines and throughout the world, the harvest is ripe. But we still need many labourers. We also in the Philippines were able to reach out to youth, and because Filipinos love basketball, we decided that would be a good platform from which to present the gospel. So we would go and, play basketball, and it started off, we would have Filipinos on one side and playing against the Aussies. The Aussies were big and strong. The Filipinos were fast and skillful. And it was a tad competitive, but it was great to watch. But then they changed the teams, had a mix of Aussie-Filipino versus Aussie-Filipino, and that sort of changed the dynamic of the relationship. And then at an appropriate pause in the game, Jordan would sit them down, share the gospel with them, which was just fabulous. And they sort of were a bit bemused at what was not expected at all. But so proud of these guys as they stood up there and shared the gospel. Here you can see Josiah. He shared his testimony. He was a little nervous the first time, but he grew in confidence, and the people, including ourselves, could not help but be touched by his testimony because he was so clearly touched by what Jesus had done in his life, bringing him out of darkness and into the kingdom of light. So we were just delighted with the work that they did, sharing the gospel with others. Here's Jordan also preaching Easter Sunday in a little village church on the side of a volcano. Precious, and we just have very fond memories of those times. 12 days later, after we came back, we came with another team to India. We had Pastor Justine, we had Vanessa, who I've seen, and Amy. Haven't seen you here today, Amy, but there you are. Bless you. Had a wonderful time, totally different team, totally different dynamic, and the focus in India was very much on training, which is our thing, and not just our ministry to children, though we did that too. But while we were doing the training, Justine, Vanessa, Amy were connecting with our trainees. They were getting around them, listening to them, praying for them, loving on them. And I know that they were very much impacted. The trainees were so impacted by the love that your ladies gave to them. And what a wonderful thing that is to share love like confetti. That's what they did with our trainees in India. On Sunday, they ministered, and I know that many lives were touched as they did that. Our next trip is to Uganda next month, and we're going to be doing some training for training programs. And you might say, it's the 21st century, it's 2025, surely everybody has children's ministry, surely everybody's aware of what they need to do with kids. We were there a couple of years ago, and as we were finishing our training, we were being driven back to the city, and one of the leaders said to us, in this area there are about 1,000 churches, and about 20 of them are doing anything at all with kids. 20 out of 1,000. At another time in Mozambique, we heard a story that parents would say to their kids, you stay at home, you look after the house while we go to church. Kids, how would you feel about that if there was no children's ministry for you? If your pastors didn't think that you were important enough to be included in church? If your parents thought, Jesus is for me, but he's not for you, how would you feel about that, kids? You know, the harvest is ripe and the labourers are few. There's a lot of work yet to do. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. I look at those photos and God always touches me when I look at the harvest field and we think, Lord, we only do a little bit, but you know, if we do a little bit, God takes that little bit and He multiplies it. And we look at that, I look back now and when Jane said 35 years ago in India, you look at those kids that I taught in the school, where are they today? You know, they're all family people now, they would all have their own kids. But God just touched them and did amazing things back in those days. And as Jane said, I was never the same again. I came back to Australia and I was just thinking, India, I've got to go back to India. Now, we've got lots of kids here today. Can the kids come and sit down the front? You would do me a really big favour if you come down the front. And besides that, in here, I've got some Freddo frogs. So anybody sitting down the front that's under 12 years old will get a Freddo frog at the end. It always helps to have Freddos. Okay, thank you. Come and sit down. And also, kids. Now, this is a special family service, and I am so blessed to be here with it. Oh, thank you for coming. I've got 2 boxes here. See these boxes? One of those boxes has got some money in it. Actually, money. Who likes money? Yeah, okay. There wasn't going to be a great deal of money. In fact, there was going to be $5 in one of the boxes. But I was looking for some money, and Pastor Jordan, I said to him, have you got a $5 note? I didn't want to put the coin in there. And so he ran out to the car, and he came in, and instead of giving me $5, he gave me more. So I thought, we'll double it. So one of those boxes has got $10 in. So I'm going to be watching who's sitting up straight and listening. And at the end of the program, oh, that's it, come down the front. You might get the box. Okay, so I'm going to be watching and we're going to have a great time today. Can I have the first overhead up, please? What do you think? What do you think? That's a question, isn't it? Now, as somebody said this morning, we can get so busy in our lives, we can just be so rushed and we move from one thing to another and we don't really spend a lot of time thinking about what's happening. And, you know, sometimes in our lives, we need to stop and think. You know, I had a look at this in the Bible and I thought, how many times did Jesus ask the disciples about thinking? And so I actually Googled it and got onto the red letter. Remember the old red letter Bible? And the guy who wrote that, there was 305 times Jesus asked the disciples and the people, what do you think? He was asking them a question. Now, why did Jesus do that? Jesus knew all the answers, but he wanted the people to start to think about it. And Jesus wants us to think about different things that are happening in our lives. And sometimes we can just get into a routine and we do this and we do this, and we don't think about what and why. So I want you to think about why. Why do we do certain things? Now, our church is full of different departments, and I would like somebody from a couple of departments, maybe, would you like to come up for the ladies? We need somebody to come up for the men. Jordan, you're still here. You come up for the youth. I need somebody. Where's Rachel? Rachel, come up here. You're going to be representing different departments in the church. And I want you to think for a moment, where's Rachel? No, she's not here. Okay, somebody to represent the children's department, and yeah, you can come up here. And somebody to represent the music department. Where have we got the music department? Somebody here. Where's Meryl? Okay, no, Meryl's not here. Okay, yeah, Meryl, you come up here and represent the music department. Now, we have different departments, and if I was to ask you a question, which is the most important department in the church? What would you say? What is the most important department? What would you say? Yeah, well, that was really a good answer. You might say the music department, that's the most important department. Who says yes to the music department? Okay, that's good, yeah. Pastor Brett, yep. What department do you think?
When Jesus...
What was that? Yeah, whoa. So there's all different departments in the church, and they all need attention. And sometimes what we can do, we can give so much attention to one department, the other departments start to suffer a little bit. Have you noticed that? Maybe not in this church, but in some churches that's what happens. And we put so much importance on this department in the church. Maybe it's the ladies' ministry. Where's the ladies? Who thinks the ladies is the most important? Ladies? Okay. I notice you clapping there, Donna. How about the men? Who think the men is the most important ministry in the church? Yeah, that's good. Okay. So there are all these ministries. And how about the kids' ministry? Who thinks the kids' ministry is most important? Well, that was a good response, wasn't it? So they're all parts of the church. But Jesus, when he looks at the church, he sees the body. He sees the family. He doesn't see different departments. Now, we have different departments to get things going, but he sees the family working together. And of course, sometimes in the church, and the same in our lives, there's different times in our lives where we need to spend more time looking after certain areas in our lives. Like when we have a little baby. Have we got any little babies here? Yeah, a couple of little ones. As mums and dads know, once you have a little baby, all your attention goes to that baby, doesn't it? The rest of it's got to wait. The baby is the most important. So you spend a lot of time and attention. So that doesn't mean the other things are not important, but it just means that you need to be spending more time with that. And sometimes in the church we don't do that. We spend time and focus on one area, and what happens, the rest of it are neglected. You guys can sit down. Let's give them a big clap. So Jesus had this problem as well. One time he was with his disciples, and I need a volunteer. Eric, could you come up here? You're my volunteer. Thank you very much. And come up here. Did you like the way he volunteered for that? I need some disciples. 1, 2, 3. Come up here. Could you come up here and up here? So this is a story in the Bible about the disciples being around Jesus. And I've asked the kids to come up and read the verses from the Bible. So this is a story from Matthew chapter 18. So who's got number 1? Could you come up here and read number 1 for us? So I want you to listen really carefully and come over here next to Jesus. Where's Jesus? Jesus, you need to be up the top because you're the most important. Okay. All right, come over here. Okay. All right, so this is a story from Matthew chapter 18.
At that time, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?"
Okay, so the disciples wanted to know who was the greatest. So Jesus was there, and Jesus was listening to that. He spent a lot of time with these guys trying to get their thinking right. And all of a sudden, they throw this question at him. Who is the greatest in the kingdom? And I could imagine Jesus was probably looking at it and saying, shaking his head, saying, "What's wrong with you guys? Haven't you got it yet? How many times have I spoken to you about being humble, about not lifting yourselves up, but just trusting and following me? And here you asked, who's going to be the greatest?" So what Jesus did to teach them, Jesus used to use opportunities like this to teach his people, didn't he? And Jesus wants to use this opportunity today to maybe change some of your thinking around. Because maybe you haven't given the children's ministry very much thought. And sometimes what we can do is we can just look at kids and we just don't even see them. They're there, but we don't really think they're that important, and we just sort of go on with our lives. So Jesus grabbed a little child. Would you like to come over here? Oh, Jesus, come and grab a child. Anyone you like. Okay, this one looks like a good one. Would you like to come over here? Yeah, there we go, look. Yeah, over here. Go over with Jesus. Okay, all right. So Jesus grabbed this little child and put the little child right in the middle of the disciples. Come on, disciples, over here. And who's got number 2 here? Number 2? Sarah. Sarah, could you read out what happened here?
Then Jesus called a little child to him, set him in the midst of them.
Thank you. And number 3? Who's got number 3?
And said, "Assuredly I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven."
Wow, did you see the way he did that? Didn't even look at that. Well done. You can hold that. So Jesus said, he brought this little child and said, unless you are converted, unless you change your thinking, change what's inside and become like a little child. So what was Jesus talking about? He was talking about being humble, being trusting, like a little child. All the qualities of forgiving. You know, kids forgive, don't they? You know, we can do some real beauties with them, but they'll forgive us. And Jesus was saying, if we want to be the greatest, we have to become like a little child. Yeah. So, next one. What's the next one? We're up to number 4. Who's got number 4? Oh, here he is. Could you just read that out, please, mate?
Therefore, whoever humbles himself as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom.
So Jesus is saying there we need to humble ourselves like a little child. Like a little child saying, Jesus, you're the greatest. I'm going to lower myself, lift you up and become like a little child. And the last one we've got here, this is a really, really important one for the church.
Whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me.
Okay. Well, you need to read that again because that's a really important verse. I want you to listen to this.
Whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me.
Whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me. What was Jesus saying here? He was saying that we need to receive the little ones into our church. Children are important. You know, this church has had a great reputation of welcoming children. My first outreach, as Jane said, 35 years ago with Pastor Frank up on the A-frame. And Meryl and Kim were there, and they've been welcoming kids in and they're doing outreaches. But we can do more. We can do more. I love your play area there because when kids come here, do they feel welcome? Let me ask you that question. Do kids feel welcome? Can I have the next one up, please? Do they feel welcome in our church? Do we pray for the kids? Do we give time to the kids? Do we invest money into the kids? Because if we think they're important, we will do all those things. And I was blessed this morning at the prayer meeting before the service because it was all focused on kids. Not because we were here, because they thought it was important to pray for the kids. You know, in Geraldton, I looked at the population. You've got about 40,000 people in Geraldton. That's what they say, about 40,000. And in that 40,000, I try to work out how many were children. You can't get clear statistics, but let's say there's 25%. So you've got around about 10,000 children. So those 10,000 children, are they here today? They're not here today. So that means they're out there somewhere. You know, we need to be praying for them. Now, of course, we've got to pray for our church children because we need to be reaching and teaching. So we need to be reaching those who are outside, but we need to be discipling those who are in here. And that takes a family to do that, to pray for them. You know, kids are being attacked all over the place today. And we in the church, we have to be getting around the kids and praying for them and praying God's protection upon them. And that takes time. It takes a lot of time to do that. We need to be investing in our finances. And I love the play area there because some people might look at that and say, what a waste of money and what a waste of space. But let me tell you, there's kids that might not come to your service, but they're coming to that play area And they are seeing this place, and maybe later on in their life they'll say, that was a good experience in that place. But we need to be loving the children as a church. The things that you say and the things that you do to the kids, just the smile that you bring can help shape who they are. That makes them feel welcome. That's what Jesus said, whoever welcomes a little child is welcoming me. So that's what Jesus wants of this church. So then he goes on to say, whoever causes a little one, you can all sit down now. You can come and sit down. Thank you. Whoever causes a little one to stumble, he says it would be better to have a millstone hung around his neck and drown in the depths of the sea. Jane said to me last night, you're not going to bring that verse in, are you? Because that's a pretty heavy verse. And she knew the answer to that. Because that's what Jesus said. And what we can do is we can cause little ones to stumble, not by so much what we do, as by what we don't do. And we need to be a church that is welcoming the children, who is loving the children, who's doing things in the community to reach out and touch the children. I love it. This church has got an outreach. I know Donna's working with outreach, and Meryl and Kim were involved with outreach. I think they're still involved in some areas. But we need to be reaching out. They say, the statistics, I looked them up again just to make sure I got this right. They say that between 4 and 14 years old, 4 and 14, 63% of people make a commitment to Christ. 63%. Now, these are not just American statistics. They say that some places are a little bit different. But on average, all over the world, 63% of people make a commitment between that 10-year window. We've got 10 years between 4 and 14. The kids are soft in that time and they'll listen to you. 14-year-olds are getting harder to reach, aren't they? They're getting harder to reach. But as we reach them and love them, let me tell you, God can touch their hearts. And so we as a church, we've got to realise, okay, every area is important, but the children's ministry needs so much time. They need your best people. And I'm really impressed that Rachel's involved with the kids' ministry and I think leading it now. Rachel, is that right? Yeah. And Donna's there helping, and you're doing the outreach program, and she's been released to do that. But we need to be doing more. I want to show you a picture here. This is a little boy, and you can see he's holding a cup like this, and I'm going to finish off with this. And this is, it was actually in Dimapur in northeast India. And we had cups like this, and we may take a little kettle with us, and we make a cup of tea, because it's really nice to have a cup of tea when you want it, isn't it? And so somehow my cup got all mangled. And I tried to fix it and couldn't fix it, so I put it in the rubbish. The next morning, Jane and I walked out, and there's this little boy. He probably wouldn't have been about 12. We don't know his name, but we called him One. And there he is, holding my cup. Now, that cup that I thought was rubbish, wasn't worth anything, he's holding it. Look at the smile on his face. Wow, what a treasure this is. He's got it. He didn't know anything. I couldn't talk to him, but he's got this cup. And he's thinking, wow, what a treasure. When sometimes we look at kids and we look at people and we can discard them. Jesus says, don't despise one of these little ones, for their angels always see the face of my Father. Don't look down upon them, whatever you do. And here he is, holding this cup up. And the Lord really spoke to me. What you thought was rubbish, he thought was a treasure. And the world can look at our kids and think they're not very important, but Jesus sees them as treasure. And we as a church, we've got to rise up and say, Lord, what can we do? Can we do more? You're doing great things here in the church, but is there more that we can do? And maybe you can pray for the kids' ministry or pray for these kids regularly. Go to Rachel and say, can I have a list of some of the names of the kids so I can pray for them on a regular basis because they need that prayer. So we need to be getting around them. We need to be doing as much as we can. Do you need any support? What can I do for you, Rachel? What can I do for you, Donna? Do you need a bit of help? Do you need some finances? I want to help reach the kingdom, these little ones, because we've got that 10-year window to grab them. You know, the last verse in verse 14 that I want to think about here is Jesus said here, let's just turn with it there. In the same way, it is not the will of your Father. Now, Jesus gave the story about the lost sheep that went out and was lost, and he went out and he found the one. You know that story? 99, he had 99 sheep, and one of them wanders away. Go and find the one that's lost. So he goes and finds the one, and he says he rejoices over that one sheep, and then he says, it is not the will of my Father who is in heaven that one little one should perish. Little ones can perish. We don't want that to happen, and we don't want to think about it. And sometimes we close our eyes because it's too painful to think that little ones could perish. But Jesus is warning us here. It's not his will that one of these little ones should perish. We can do more. Now, the Lord's been challenging us. We're getting older, as you can tell. But we've been saying the next 10 years are going to be the most strategic for us. We're moving into an area where we're going to be attacking in the next 10 years and training and multiplying, because the harvest is white. And these kids need to be discipled in Jesus.